The literature review. In order to understand a literature review, there are 3 questions we need to answer. What is a literature review? Why do we use a literature review? And how can we create a literature review? A literature review is basically a summary of all the research that has been conducted on the topic area previously. That would include looking at books and journals and other sources. And this is the starting point for any research project. It is important that you understand the subject area and what has already been researched. Why do we use a literature review? Well, firstly, it helps us understand the different areas and issues that our research needs to address. It will provide us with a framework for the research, and this framework will identify these different issues that we need to consider. Our literature review will also possibly suggest research methodologies as you look at the different research done by previous researchers. You can also use your literature review in the discussion section. If you're doing primary research as well as secondary, then your literature review will provide you with the framework, and in your discussion you will be looking at your primary research and then compare it back against what the literature says. So having a clear literature structure is important for your discussion and to give you the different areas that you will need to compare your findings against. If you're doing just secondary research, then the literature review section will just be the framework, the overview of your research, and your discussion and analysis will also be a review of what the literature says, but in more depth. So how do we create a literature review? Well, how we create it is recorded in the methodology section, so that is part of the methodology. It enables us to search for literature about the topic area. How do we create a literature review? Well, how you created the literature review belongs in the methodology section. This is where you explain how you did your research. In order to do your research, you will need to identify appropriate literature. So you're searching for the literature, and then you decide which of the sources are appropriate to include or exclude. We've already looked in a previous lecture at the inclusion-exclusion criteria. Once you have your pile of resources that you're going to look at, you need to evaluate these. How useful is each one of them? And do you need to consider different things as you're using these articles? Perhaps, for example, you've got an article that's biased, written from a biased perspective. That has to be taken into account when you're using the article in your literature review or your discussion. Then, once you have evaluated your sources, you're in a position to organise, break down the content of these articles. So I recommend you use a literature matrix to do that, which will organise the information by theme and author. And then once you have your table, your literature matrix, you can use it to reorganise the literature by theme. On the next short video, we will look at how you can create a literature review.